Syrian city of Aleppo, where dozens of families are leaving militant-held neighborhoods through safe passages created by the Syrian army.
It's a very good feeling. May God protect the army. We suffered a lot and worked a lot. May God curse those militants. They did not leave food or medicine, and by the time we left, it was not easy. Had it not been for the army's will, we wouldn't have reached this point.
We suffered a lot because of those dogs who have no shame. They were unjust to us and to our children. We left under the protection of the army.
Among those evacuating the eastern areas of Aleppo are families of militants who have laid down their arms. Some of them have arrived in temporary shelters set up by the army in the western part of Aleppo. Meanwhile, Russia has announced it has opened 4 more humanitarian corridors around Aleppo. That is in addition to the previous 4 safe passages created by the Syrian army, one of them allocated to militants. Many foreign-backed militants have surrendered to government troops and handed over their weapons based on an amnesty decree issued by President Assad. The latest developments come after the army and allied forces cut all militant supply lines in and out of Aleppo. Well, to discuss that further, I'm joined by Mr. James Petras, who is a Middle East expert, and he's joining us live now via Skype from New York. Mr. Petras, what does it say about the Syrian government that it's allowing safe passage, not only, of course, for civilians, but even for militants who put down their arms?
I think this is an extraordinarily positive development in every sense. The main issue at the beginning was the military defeat of the anti-Syrian terrorists and the advance of the Syrian army backed by their local militias. The defeat of the terrorists has set forth a series of processes that allow for the humanitarian gestures that are underway. There is no question on a world scale that Russia and Syria have gained enormous prestige because of the humanitarian measures that they've taken. And in particular, I think one should recognize that the safe passage for the Syrians is also an indication of the degree of support within Aleppo for the Bashar Assad government. Finally, I think we should recognize also that the forces that the terrorists have, the military forces, are disintegrating. The surrender of many of their fighters and the turning over of arms signals the fact that ISIS is finished as a decisive factor in Syria. It's only a question of time now where the rest of the ISIS forces will either flee or surrender and set in motion the process for an accommodation and reconciliation between all the people in Syria. I think the only problem remaining is the policies in the United States, which continue to foment these terrorist organizations, provide them with funding. But I think the falling out now between the United States and Turkey will undermine the effort by Washington to support and supply the ISIS terrorists.
Indeed, I actually wanted to ask you about that, Mr. Petras, if you can expand on that last part, because certainly it's not just the United States and Turkey, is it, who support such terrorists. There's also a lot of these Arab dictatorships who are hell-bent, of course, on supporting such militancy. How do you feel about how they may react behind the scenes?
Well, I think Saudi Arabia is really the main culprit here. They've been in the forefront of fomenting terrorism and Sunni extremists throughout the region in Iraq, as well as in Syria, in Yemen, and elsewhere. But they will not be an effective force because they depend heavily on sending supplies through Turkey. And now that Erdogan has recognized that the U.S. played a role in fostering a coup by the Gulenists, I think there is a turn by Erdogan toward a reconciliation with Russia and perhaps a recognition that his policies to Syria were a disaster.
Very well, we'll leave it there at that point. But as always, Mr. Petras, we appreciate you taking your time to speak to us here at Press TV.